Okay, so this is a short story that I wrote. If you're looking for footage or pictures of paranormal type stuff, I'm sorry to disappoint, but, well, here you have it. The Demon in the Cold. Alexis was on her way back home, driving down a very nearly deserted country road. It was in the middle of November, and it had been unseasonably warm until tonight. The snow was falling so thickly that it took all of her effort to keep her car on the road. Suddenly, the wind picked up as she hit a patch of ice, and the next thing Alexis knew, she was in a ditch. "Fuck!" she screamed, with no one to hear it but herself. First, she attempted to drive out of the ditch. Alexis couldn't get the car to budge so much as an inch. "God damn!" she muttered under her breath. She reached for her cell phone and opened it. She had no service. She couldn't so much as send a text message. "What the hell did I do?" She asked no one in particular. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't get her car out of the ditch. Her cell phone wasn't an option, and she wasn't dressed appropriately for the weather. It had been 65 degrees when she left her home that day. The temperature had dropped by 50 degrees or so since. Even if she had been dressed appropriately, the nearest place she knew of that she could get any sort of help was around 5.5 miles away. She sat in her car thinking about her options, when suddenly something hit the windshield. At first all she could register was that it was dark-colored and spattered something red over half of her windshield. After she calmed down, she leaned closer to see it. It was a rabbit, or to be more precise, half of a rabbit. She was utterly terrified by the thing. The blood spattered across her windshield was unnerving. The way the eye was glazed was disturbing. Its insides hanging out of it were nearly unbearable. It took all of her resolve to neither vomit nor get out of the car and run. Alexis turned the windshield wipers on, half to get rid of the rabbit and half to see what had thrown it there. Once most of the snow had been cleared away, she leaned over the steering wheel, trying to see whatever was out there. She was terrified by what she saw. It was like nothing she had ever seen before. It stood at least 9 feet tall. It was covered in dark, shaggy fur. 5 arms were spaced around it, just below what she assumed was its neck, each one ending in a paw like a bear's, only with longer, more savage-looking claws. It had 3 legs on each side of its pelvis. Atop its neck were 4 different heads. One that looked like a wolf, one that looked like a bear, another like that of a wild cat, and one that appeared completely unearthly. Its torso twisted from left to right, then back, while its head looked about the ground as if searching for more prey. Alexis sat, paralyzed with fear. The only thought that went through her head was a prayer that it would pass by the car and not investigate it. She saw what it had done to the rabbit and didn't want to think about what it would do to her. As soon as she had regained her composure, she frantically began to search her car for anything she could use as a weapon against the monster that stood outside. After finding nothing on the floor or in the back seat, she laid down the back seat to search the trunk. She finally found it. She found what she often referred to as "that thing you used to change the tire. Not the jack, the other thing. The thing you used to take the nuts off the tire." It was her only hope that should the monster decide that she was next. 18 inches of steel painted black with a flattened end was her only hope against the fur-covered nightmare creature outside of her car. She turned on the windshield wipers again to see if it had taken notice of her. To her utter horror, it was heading directly for her car. It reached the car and pounded on the hood several times. Then it walked around to the passenger side door. Alexis gripped the piece of steel harder and harder. Then the monster did exactly what she hoped it lacked the intelligence to do. It opened the door. Then it spoke. "Come out to play," the unearthly head said to her. Then she began to stab wildly at the thing with the flattened end of her makeshift weapon, while shouting, "Get the hell out of my car!" It reached one of its unnatural paws in to grab her. She ran the steel straight through it into the passenger seat. All 4 heads screamed in agony and surprise. She tried to stab it again, but it pulled back too quickly. "Foolish little girl," the thing said. "Do you not know that it's a terrible mistake to earn the wrath of a demon?" Suddenly the wolf head began to howl. The wind picked up, blowing harder than it should have been. The wind also changed direction and was now blowing directly into the open door of her car. Within seconds, Alexis could no longer feel her hands or her feet. She knew it would not be long before hypothermia set in and she would die of cold. She had to do something to get the door closed, but the demon wouldn't allow it. With only seconds to think, Alexis decided on a plan that was suicidal at best. She jumped at the demon, swinging the steel that she clutched at its heads. The end that was intended to slide over the nuts on the tires collided with the bear's head directly between its eyes, making a sharp, cracking noise. She quickly swung again at another head, this time striking the cat head with the flattened end, apparently penetrating the skull. Then the demon managed to swipe. It clawed her back, shredding through her sweatshirt and her skin. She screamed in pain and tried to separate herself from the demon, but without success. Suddenly, the jaws of the wolf head clamped down on her shoulder. She brought her weapon down upon that head as it screamed, "Let go of her." She fell to the ground and quickly rolled to the side, narrowly missing having her chest crushed under one of its feet. She jumped up and ran behind her car. Suddenly, the demon leapt through the air, landed roughly 6 feet away from her. She and the demon stood for a moment, both gauging the situation. Then the beast leapt at her, but she jumped to the side just in time. The creature hit the back of her car, pushing it forward several feet. She brought the flattened end of her weapon down upon the creature, apparently with enough force to impale it. Then the nightmare creature's body began to flake apart and was quickly blown away into the snow. Alexis looked around to survey the situation. Then she noticed that her car was now partially back on the road. "Oh my God," she said to no one but herself. "A demon got my car out of a ditch. What are the fucking odds of that?" She climbed back into her car and noticed that the snow had all but stopped. She drove the rest of the way home, grinning in her pride at having beaten the demon in the cold. Okay, so that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. I think that's one of the better ones I've written. I eventually plan on getting a book published, and this is going to be in it, so yeah. Well, thanks for giving me the time to listen and all that. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great evening, morning, day, night, whatever time of day it is for you.